I've been married for 5 years to my kind husband. We are very close but don't have children yet. We were looking forward to the day we would, until the accident happened. Please listen to this unbelievable story. My husband is kind to everyone, not just me. My parents adore him too. I have a sister who is very focused on her career. My husband got along well with her, even though she was always busy with work. Suddenly, my husband's work became very busy. He started coming home late and working on his days off. He was put in charge of a team and was always on his phone, staying in touch with his team members. Looking back, people might have found that suspicious, but I didn't. I just worried about his health. Then my sister, who lived alone in her own apartment, decided to move because of a new job. She wanted to buy furniture for her new place, so I planned to take her shopping in my car on a Saturday. However, on the day of the trip, my boss called, and I had to go to the office. This was the only day off my sister had, and I didn't want to cancel. I realized my husband had the day off, which was rare lately. I asked him if he could take my sister shopping instead. He saw the trouble I was in and agreed, even though it felt a bit awkward. He asked if he could borrow my car since his was being repaired. I was grateful for his help and went to the office to deal with my work problem. It was the first time my husband and sister went out alone together. I wondered if they were doing well and if they had found the right furniture. After I finished dealing with the problem at work, it was dark. I pulled out my phone to call my husband and sister for dinner. That's when I got a call from an unknown number. "Hello. Am I speaking to Eric's family member?" a stranger asked. "Yes, I'm his wife. This is the police. Your husband has been in an accident." The man who said he was a police officer told me that the car my husband was driving had been in an accident. Both he and his female passenger were unconscious. I don't remember what I did after hearing the news, but I rushed to the hospital. I told the emergency receptionist my name and was taken to the ICU. Through the glass window, I saw my husband connected to tubes and covered in bandages. I was very worried about what would happen to him. My mother, who lived far away, arrived later, and we spent an anxious night together. The police told us more details about the accident. They said Eric had been driving on a clear road when a car ran a red light and hit him. The other driver was also seriously injured and being treated at the same hospital. The driver said Eric's car had been acting strangely before the crash, so the police were checking if Eric had fallen asleep at the wheel. A few days later, my husband and sister woke up and the doctors ran some tests. My mother and I were called in to hear the results. We were told that while they would not die, they would likely have some disabilities. Still, my mother and I were happy they were alive and hoped they would recover somewhat through rehabilitation. We didn't tell them about the possibility of disabilities. We only told them positive things and took care of them. My mother looked after my sister, and I took care of my husband. At first, my husband was in shock from the accident and not feeling well. He was also worried about the trouble he caused us, but over time, my kind husband started to change. He was frustrated because his leg wouldn't move easily. The hospital treatment and having to quit his job made things worse, and he couldn't control his anger. Still, I went to the hospital every day because I understood how he felt and wanted to support him. One day, a police detective came to the hospital. He told me he had discovered something about the accident. It seemed that the brake oil in my car had leaked, so an accident might have happened sooner or later. He said this might explain why the car was acting strangely before the crash. The woman who crashed into my car was also not doing well. Her mother came to apologize. It was the first time I had met her. Since then, my husband's anger towards me increased. He was mad that I could move while he couldn't. He was also annoyed that I couldn't stay long at the hospital because of my work schedule. He started ordering me around and venting his anger on me when I didn't get what he wanted. He threw things at me, complained about his hospital room, and even complained when I went out to buy my own lunch. His demands kept getting worse. I felt sorry for him, but I had to work to make ends meet. There were many things I had to do, like contacting the police and talking to the hospital. I didn't even have time to breathe. My husband's attitude was becoming unbearable. I could see that I was being driven into a corner. My sister was in a similar state of mind, and my mother became more and more exhausted. I heard that my sister's demands on my mother, who had no job, were even worse when I couldn't go to the hospital. Both my husband and my sister seemed to have heard that they would remain paralyzed even with rehabilitation. Then there was the issue of my car's brake oil leaking. My sister said, "Hey, I heard your car was leaking oil. You were responsible for your car's maintenance. I can't work, and I can't get my body back to normal because of it. Mom looks irritated, and your husband is in the same condition. You are responsible for taking care of me and your husband for the rest of your life." My sister blamed me so harshly that I felt overwhelmed. I tried to explain that I had no idea about the leak and that I had been taking care of the car as best as I could, but she wouldn't listen. She kept saying that it was my fault and that I should have been more careful. My mother's health was also deteriorating because of the constant stress and pressure from both my sister and my husband. She looked tired and worn out, but she continued to help as much as she could. I felt guilty for putting her through all this, but I didn't know what else to do. As days went by, my husband's attitude grew worse. He became more demanding and less understanding. He blamed me for everything that went wrong, and his anger was relentless. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, constantly trying to avoid triggering his rage. Despite all this, I tried to stay positive. I kept telling myself that things would get better and that my husband and sister would eventually recover. I hoped that with time, their anger would subside and they would understand that I was doing my best. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, I sat down with my mother to talk about the situation. She listened patiently as I poured out my worries and fears. She reminded me that I wasn't alone and that we would get through this together. We decided to seek help from a counselor to find ways to cope with the stress and the emotional strain. It was a difficult decision, but we knew it was necessary for our well-being. As we started the counseling sessions, I noticed a slight change in my husband's behavior. He seemed to be more willing to talk about his feelings and frustrations. It wasn't a complete turnaround, but it was a start. My sister, on the other hand, remained hostile. She continued to blame me for her condition and refused to participate in any counseling sessions. It was heartbreaking to see her so consumed by anger, but I knew I had to focus on what I could control. In the midst of all this, I continued to work and manage our household. It was exhausting, but I took it one day at a time. I leaned on my mother for support, and we found strength in each other. Slowly, my husband's physical condition started to improve. The rehabilitation sessions were helping, and he was regaining some mobility. His mood also improved slightly, and there were moments when I saw glimpses of the kind man I married. My sister, however, remained distant and bitter. I continued to reach out to her, hoping that one day she would let go of her anger and allow us to help her heal. It was a long and difficult journey, but I held on to hope. Through it all, I learned the importance of resilience and the power of love and support. Despite the challenges, I remained committed to my family, determined to see us through this tough time. And so, we continued our journey, facing each day with courage and hope, believing that brighter days were ahead. My sister blamed me so harshly that I was shocked and called my mother. She told me my sister had been like this for a long time and that she was too tired to go to the hospital. Still worried about my husband, I went to the hospital. When I didn't see him in his room, I found him with my sister in the common room. Visiting hours were almost over, and they were sitting alone together in the empty room. "Hey," my husband said, glaring at me, "I heard that if you had just taken the car in for inspection, none of this would have happened." "Yeah, but," I started to say, "you are the reason why your sister and I are in this mess. The insurance will pay for it, and you're going to have to take care of us for the rest of your life. Remember that." Hearing those words, something snapped inside me. "Since when are you so close to my sister?" I asked. "What do you mean?" my husband replied. "You don't come here often, and your mom texted your sister to say she could come for a while. Since we both can't leave this place or walk, what's wrong with talking to your husband?" It felt like my husband and sister were ganging up on me. "I know, right," I said sarcastically. "You guys hadn't seen each other for a long time before the accident, right?" My husband ignored my question. "I'm talking about you taking care of us. You know that," he said. My sister didn't look at me, but nodded when my husband said I would take care of them both for the rest of their lives. I didn't expect an answer, but I kept asking anyway, hoping they might understand how I felt. "I wonder if the person whose car hit you is getting better now," I said. "How should I know?" my husband snapped. "She ran into us when the traffic light was red. It's just unbelievable." "That's right," my sister added. "You can't imagine how scary it was. We really need to make sure we get some compensation from her. And I was so close to getting a promotion, too. If I didn't cut in, they would just keep on complaining." I decided it was time to expose the truth. "There's something I need to let you know." "What?" "First of all, I had my car inspected before the accident." "Did you? Then the dealer should be sued. There's no way they didn't know the brake oil was leaking." "I know, right? So, right after the accident, the police called me. They wanted to know the cause of the accident, so they asked if they could look at my drive recorder. But that old drive recorder doesn't record sound, and it also doesn't start recording until after the accident, so you can't get anything out of it." "I see. It's just like I thought. You didn't know I had gotten a new drive recorder." My sister looked up in surprise. "What?" "I also installed another camera inside the car." Her face grew paler and paler. Drive recorders nowadays can start recording with even a slight shake of the car. The police contacted me and said they had seen the data." My husband looked confused, and my sister looked so pale she almost collapsed. "You were up to something, correct?" I confronted her. "What do you mean?" she asked, panicking. "You did something to the car," I said, turning to my husband. "You talk to her like she's your girlfriend." My husband stopped talking, apparently in panic. "I told you earlier that a slight vibration would start the recording, and so many intimate scenes between the two of you were recorded." I was so embarrassed when the police asked if it was my sister who was in the car with my husband. The blood drained from my husband's face. "You guys had been having an affair all this time. You had completely fooled me." Not knowing what to do, my husband started blaming my sister. "Linda isn't the only one at fault here." At that moment, the mother of the woman who had crashed into my car came to the hospital room. I had asked her to come over. "Don't you have anything to say to her?" I asked. My sister was taken aback by the sudden appearance of the small, frail woman. "Whoa, who's this?" she asked. "She's the mother of the woman who crashed into you. She should be the one paying for all this." Surprised by the woman's tears, my husband stopped talking. "She's the mother of the woman who crashed into you," I repeated. "She's also the mother of the woman who was your victim. Her name is Kelly. I'm sure you know who she is." Hearing the woman's name, my husband turned completely pale. My sister started to panic. "What is this? Do you know the woman who was driving the car?" she asked. "That means they knew it was your car, and she crashed into it. Who is she?" As my husband seemed at a loss for words, I decided to tell my sister what was going on. She was having an affair with Eric. He had told her that he would get a divorce soon, but he didn't. So when Kelly lied to him that she was pregnant with his baby, Eric told her to get an abortion. After that, she couldn't get in touch with Eric and wanted to hurt me to take revenge. "Wait, so that means," my sister started. "Right, you were in the wrong place at the wrong time," I replied. "I can't believe I let something like this ruin my life," my sister groaned. "The reality is that there is nothing you can do about it. no matter how much you cry or scream," I said. "This didn't happen to completely innocent people. Now you understand what happened. You two were having an affair behind my back, and Linda was trying to get me injured or killed by messing with the brake oil in my car. But then she got in the car herself and ended up in the accident. I am the victim here. I was going to try not to divorce you if you apologized and confessed everything during your hospital stay, but you never showed any remorse. On the contrary, you treated me terribly. Do you remember how we wrote our divorce papers right after we got married? I never thought I'd use them, but I submitted the papers today. So you and I are no longer married. Bye." Having said all that, I left the dark and quiet hospital. I felt free, having finally released the resentment I had bottled up inside. But my mother was greatly shocked when she found out the truth. Not only was she hurt by my sister's infidelity, but she was also weighed down by the fact that she would have to take care of her physically disabled daughter all by herself. As I walked out of the hospital, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and sadness. The weight of the betrayal from both my husband and sister was heavy, but the decision to finally free myself from the toxic situation brought a sense of liberation. The air outside felt different, lighter, as if a burden had been lifted off my shoulders. I got into my car and sat there for a moment, taking deep breaths. The city lights flickered around me, and the hum of traffic was a comforting reminder that life goes on. I thought about everything that had happened, from the accident to the shocking revelations. It felt like a whirlwind, and now I had to figure out what my next steps would be. When I got home, I found my mother sitting in the living room, looking lost and tired. She had been through so much, and I could see the toll it had taken on her. We sat together in silence for a while, both of us processing the events of the day. "I'm so sorry, Mom," I finally said. "I didn't want any of this to happen. I didn't know things would turn out this way." She looked at me with a sad smile. "It's not your fault, dear. You did what you had to do. I'm just worried about your sister. I don't know how we will manage." "We'll figure it out," I reassured her. "We'll take it one day at a time. Maybe we can find some help for her, someone who can assist with her care. You're not alone in this. We'll get through it together." The days that followed were challenging. My sister's condition required constant attention, and my mother and I had to adjust to a new routine. We hired a nurse to help with my sister's daily needs, which provided some relief, but the emotional strain was still present. My husband, now my ex-husband, tried to contact me several times, but I ignored his calls. I had nothing left to say to him. The divorce was finalized quickly, and I made sure to cut all ties. I needed to move on and start healing from the trauma. Work became a sanctuary for me. It was a place where I could focus on something other than the chaos in my personal life. My colleagues were supportive, and throwing myself into my tasks helped keep my mind occupied. Over time, the wounds began to heal. My sister slowly came to terms with her new reality, and though our relationship was strained, we found a way to coexist peacefully. My mother, though still weary, seemed to regain some of her strength. We found a new normal, one that wasn't perfect but was manageable. Reflecting on everything, I realized how strong I had become. The betrayal had tested me in ways I never imagined, but it also showed me my resilience. I had faced the darkest parts of my life and come out on the other side, stronger and more determined than ever. Life moved forward, and so did I. The scars remained, but they were a testament to my journey and the battles I had fought. With each passing day, I embraced the future with hope, ready to build a new life for myself and my family. I've cut off all ties with Eric and Linda, but I couldn't leave my mother to handle everything alone. So I talked to the person responsible for the accident, accepted the necessary apologies, and asked her to compensate my sister, who was mistakenly involved in the accident, so my mother wouldn't be troubled. 3 years have passed since then. My husband and I are divorced, and I am living on my own. Back then, Eric and I were seen as a close couple, so the divorce surprised my coworkers. After that, more and more men approached me for advice. I thought it was because I was going through that phase when divorced women suddenly seem appealing to men. The image of my ex-husband lingered in my mind, and I couldn't bring myself to date anymore. I studied hard for a certification exam to build my career. I even joined an online business school that I could attend after work. When I was married, I never imagined wanting to do something like that. I never invited my sister, who had been a career woman, and I didn't think I would ever aspire to be one. But there I was naturally aiming for that. Life is strange, I thought. Since then, my ex-husband has returned to his parents' house, but he seems to be treated as a burden by his family. His relatives blamed him for his bad behavior and the way he treated me. I hear that he is not doing well mentally and has been acting violently, causing lots of trouble for those around him. My sister also returned to our parents' house, but she too became mentally ill and continued to behave selfishly. My mother, exhausted, used my sister's savings and the accident compensation to put her in a care home. She asked me about it beforehand, but I had no reason to oppose it, so I told her she could do whatever she wanted. If I hadn't noticed anything back then, things might have been very different. I would have been like a slave for both of them for the rest of my life. I never thought about that before, but now I realize how different my life could have been. After everything that happened, I decided to focus on myself and my future. I studied hard and passed the certification exam I had been aiming for. This success led to a transfer to a new department where I could really use my skills and grow in my career. It felt good to achieve something for myself, to prove that I could rebuild my life. During this time, I also became close with the teacher who ran the online business school. We spent a lot of time together, and our friendship grew into something more. Unlike my ex-husband, he wasn't just kind to everyone, he was especially kind to me. He showed me what it felt like to be truly cared for and appreciated. We are soon to be married, and I feel incredibly fortunate to have found someone who supports and loves me. When I get home late from work, he makes sure to come back early to prepare dinner for us. He always thinks about my needs and makes an effort to create a happy and loving home. I have learned to cherish these small moments of happiness. They remind me of how far I've come and how much I have overcome. Every day, I feel grateful for the new life I have built and the love I have found. One evening, as I hurried home from work, I looked up at the stars and thought about everything I had been through. I made a wish upon a star, hoping for continued happiness and strength. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had led me to a place where I felt truly content. When I walked through the door, my partner was there, waiting for me with a warm smile and a delicious dinner ready on the table. His kindness and understanding were constant reminders of how much my life had changed for the better. We talked about our day, shared laughs, and made plans for our future together. My past, with all its pain and betrayal, seemed like a distant memory. I had learned to let go of the anger and resentment, and instead focus on the positive aspects of my new life. I found joy in the simple things, like cooking together, taking evening walks, and planning weekend getaways. My relationship with my mother also improved. She saw how happy I was and supported my new relationship. We talked often, and she visited us regularly. My sister was still in the care home, and while it was a difficult situation, my mother and I managed to find a balance. We made sure she was taken care of, but we also made time for ourselves and our own well-being. As my wedding day approached, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. I was about to start a new chapter in my life with someone who truly loved and respected me. On the day of the wedding, surrounded by friends and family, I felt an overwhelming sense of happiness and peace. I knew that I had made it through the darkest times and had come out stronger and more resilient. Looking into my partner's eyes as we exchanged vows, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had shown me what true love and kindness were, and I was ready to spend the rest of my life with him. Our future together looked bright, and I was excited to see where it would take us. After the wedding, we settled into our new life together. We continued to support each other in our careers and personal growth. We traveled, explored new hobbies, and made countless memories. Every day felt like a new adventure, filled with love and laughter. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that all the hardships had led me to this point. They had taught me valuable lessons about resilience, self-worth, and the importance of surrounding myself with people who genuinely cared about me. I had transformed my life and found happiness in ways I never imagined possible. As I looked forward to the future, I knew that I could handle whatever came my way. I had built a strong foundation of love, trust, and mutual respect with my partner. Together, we were ready to face any challenges and celebrate every joy that life had to offer. And so my story continued, not as a victim of circumstance, but as a person who had found strength and happiness in the face of adversity. I embraced each day with a grateful heart, knowing that I had created a life filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities.